Welcome to a different kind of doula. Today, I am so excited to bring you a financial advisor that I've known for a number of years. One of the things people don't realize is that it's important to plan for your end of life financially. And the sooner we do it, the better. I'm Maureen Curis with Radiant Morning, and my two co-hosts, Colleen and Kathleen, are both off on grand adventures. So I'm here flying solo today with Tresa Leftenant of Cornerstone Financial Strategies and Ameriprise Financial. So Teresa and I have known each other for a number of years, and I'm so grateful she said yes to come talk to you about this important topic. But she's been a certified financial planner and in this industry for 38 years. And we have that in common because I have been a nurse for 38 years. So gosh, time sure
Gray
flew
hair
by.
is a wonderful thing, isn't
It
it?
is. It is. How did that time fly by so quickly? But a little bit quickly about Teresa. She has a heart for serving women, especially. She serves everyone, but she has a heart for serving women. She had written a book called Reinventing Her. And she has a passion for getting people financially set. She is the mother of three amazing kids, and she is married to a fabulous man. And they just bought their first sailboat and are getting ready to take more than just their maiden voyage that they just took. So, Teresa, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into financial planning.
Sure. Maureen, I'm so excited that you invited me. I've been really wanting to be on your show because mostly I want to support you and I want to talk to the women that you talk to. And I started in banking back in the when I was just a teenager, really. So I've been in the financial services business my entire career. Here and there, I worked for big banks and corporations and so on, but I started my own company back in 2003. So I've been in Bellevue with a solo financial planning practice all that time. And I just joined Cornerstone Financial Strategies last year, which is a great company with lots of wonderful team members that I really, really enjoy working with. But really what we're here to talk about is financial planning. And of course, financial planning is a family affair. It's something that we need to do all throughout our lives, regardless of what our financial status is at any given time. Before we get to end of life planning in terms of financial steps to take, it's kind of a good review to think about. There are phases and stages that we go through in life. And, we all kind of have similar goals. We go to college and we get our degree and we have goals for a nice career. And then we meet somebody, have a family and so on. And so anybody who might be younger that's listening today, or family members, having these decisions made throughout those stages of life really sets you up well for when you're in the twilight years, as we like to call them. So as wealth increases and as our goals change, then different decisions kind of come up, and there's options and so on. I need to stop though here just for a second and make sure everybody realizes that financial planning is a personal affair. And of course, there is a lot of information out on the internet and everything, and we all should get educated. But the best way to make the right decisions is to have a professional help you so that you can talk about your circumstances, which is totally different than anyone else's. And the other thing that I need to also say is that what I'm going to talk about today is really general information because I can't give advice, right?
Right.
I only give advice to clients who have engaged me and where I'm able to know every individual's particular circumstances to make sure that their advice or my advice to them is actually appropriate for them. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. And, I think what you pointed out is that it's for every stage of life. I have, like when young people are starting out with their first job, that's the best thing they can do is to get with a financial advisor. And as you said, it sets you up for life, not just today or tomorrow, but to look, well into the future. So planning your retirement when you're starting out and start building that foundation for retirement we don't think of that when we're 22, 23 years old.
we have other things on our mind, but the young people who actually do start putting money away, even if it's a small amount, they get that benefit of compounding over time that really sets them up, to really have a nice sizable nest egg when they get into their 60s.
And as I work with people in my end of life planning, a lot of people have never talked to a financial advisor. They feel that, oh, well, we don't really have a lot. And I try to encourage them to look deeper, that it's not, like you said, about how much you have. It's about setting yourself up. And even if you haven't done anything and you're approaching retirement or approaching the twilight, maybe the final third of your life, it's never too late to get with a financial advisor and set a plan for the future.
And it
And I
really
think I
is.
might have.
If I would just make one comment about that, it's really about how you care about yourself. Because I have a passion for helping women and men around their internal thoughts and feelings around money. And I know a lot of people who resist the whole idea of getting professional advice because they have a feeling that they're not worth it, or like you say, they don't have enough money. But
or they're embarrassed, thinking,
right.
oh, we've mismanaged money for so long, and I'm too embarrassed. I don't want them to know.
Yes, and a good financial advisor will speak to anyone at any stage of life with any amount of money and do their best to make the best recommendations for where that person is and also where they want to go. Because
Right.
goals and visions for a better life is really something that we all have. And money is there to support our hopes and dreams for the future.
Right. As we were planning, I mean, it helps us plan to be able to enjoy our retirement, not just exist in our retirement. Okay, I want to jump into some of these end of life financial planning that I'm always encouraging people to do and to start sooner rather than later. So, what should people think about when it comes to insurances, and what different types of insurance should they think of as they're building their financial plan?
Well, let's talk with a kind of a basic kind of insurance that a lot of people who are getting up in years and have faced the fact that they won't be on the planet forever. And they want to start making some decisions and preparations for that time. So that is called burial insurance. And of course, burial insurance is, what I like to say about insurance is just a way for you to leverage your money. So you put in a certain amount and you get something else back. And the insurance company decides what that difference is, right? How much you're going to put in versus how much more you could potentially get. So a burial life insurance policy could be something in the $5,000 to $10,000 range in terms of benefit, because really the sky's the limit when you talk about funeral expenses or celebrations of life or whatever. Every family decides what they want and how much they feel like they can afford. But you can have a small situation where you don't need much insurance for that, or you can have a total blowout and need a little bit more money.
And
So burial insurance is something to really look into with a life insurance company.
because, especially this day and age, even the cheapest burials, I shouldn't say cheapest, the most financially affordable are expensive. It
Yes,
costs money to die.
it
And
does.
I think people don't plan on that. And then it can be a financial burden for the family, because, families do want to um, have that life celebration or that funeral celebration, or send their loved one off with love and hope. But to not have the financial means to do it is challenging. So that burial insurance, I think, is such an important aspect to consider.
And I'm sure you talk about this all the time with your clients, Maureen, and I do too. It's all about planning ahead. Insurance is one of those areas where the most cost effective pricing is earlier in life. If
Yes.
you wait until you're older, you're going to pay more. It's going to be more expensive. And, that's true for life insurance, long-term care insurance, any of those others. It really is something that, I don't want to say needs. People deserve to talk about this and to
Yes.
get the facts and to look at their own situation, which comes right back around to the, getting good advice and planning early.
I love how you say people deserve to talk about this instead of need to. We
Yeah.
do deserve to talk about this, and yet we're so afraid sometimes too. So I think so many people don't even know that there's something called burial insurance out there. And most people know about life insurance, maybe not a lot, but a lot of people get life insurance through their employers, or they can take out life insurance policies. But long-term care, can we talk about long-term care insurance? Because there's different types, aren't
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. And, we just went through that exercise in the state of Washington where, the state was mandating that everyone needed to have some amount of money taken out of their payroll every month in order to give themselves kind of a minimal long-term care policy. And if you don't know this, that was sort of scrapped at the last moment, and it's kind of gone back to the redesign phase, because what happened was the insurance companies that do provide this long-term care, they were just overwhelmed, and that it was really going to be difficult for them to figure out how to manage the risk. And here's the thing about any kind of insurance, but long-term care especially, less than 90% of people don't have long-term care insurance, and yet 50% of people over 65 will need some kind of care that long-term care insurance would help them with those expenses
Isn't
after they're
that
65.
isn't that low? 50%? I read that the number was higher.
Oh,
The
it gets
percentage
higher
was
and
higher.
higher the older you get. But if
Right,
we're
right.
thinking that, 65 to, average life expectancy, it's around 50% will make some sort of claim. And so, there are a lot of different kinds of policies. There's a policy that will absolutely give you the total amount that you would get, that you would have to pay when you are in some sort of facility. And by the way, remember that long-term care only covers those things that we call the activities of daily living.
Mhm.
So you would have to not be able to feed yourself or toilet yourself or be able to get around. You'd have to be moved. So this insurance comes into play when you really are in a condition that you can't really take care of yourself. And that's usually later in life. Now, it can
Right,
happen earlier, definitely, but it's usually in the 80s and 90s and even into the hundreds when your body sort of can't do what it's always done.
right.
So those long-term care policies are really helpful for those people who use it. But nowadays, there are policies that have a couple be able to use. So one can use the benefit or the other one could use the benefit. That didn't used to be the case. Other policies now provide a return of the money that you've put in if you don't use it. So your heirs get the money back. And then the other kind of long-term care is a combination of life insurance and long-term care benefits. So in other words, you're buying a policy for your death, but if you need long-term care, then you get to access the death benefit for expenses to take care of you.
Right. And I think that one is important for people to know about because it's something good to talk to your financial advisor to see which is the best policy for you. And, I just had recently an acquaintance, her dad was in long-term, well, he needed full care for the last 5 days of his life, but they had paid for years into long-term care and they reimbursed $350. So of that. And so I think that's really important for people to educate yourself. Don't just assume because you've been paying into this policy, really educate yourself and see what is best for you. And by doing that, going to a financial planner is the way, someone with that financial knowledge that can help you look at every different option that you just reviewed is important. So
And another thing, Maureen, that I've noticed is that sometimes people buy these policies when they're younger, and then they kind of forget they have them. And so if you are listening and you have parents who are older it might behoove you just to ask if there is a policy stuck away somewhere in a file folder. The thing that I find many people do is they don't know that their parents have it. And then even if they do have it, they feel so confused about the complexity of making a claim that they don't make a claim. And so therefore they don't use the benefit. If you have long-term care, it can provide better care. If your parent is has a lower social economic condition, then they don't have the same options in terms of the quality of care they might get if they are unable to walk, or again, if they have those activities of daily living that they need assistance for. So this is why we need to have conversations in our family, which is what you really are all about.
I am passionate about that. And can I ask you a question as a financial planner, someone that is your client, if they have, let's say my mom is your client, she dies, and then could I come to you with her policy and say, can you help me navigate this? Is that something you do as a financial planner, or?
Oh, absolutely. But you're saying if she
So my
died,
mom has the policy with you, I guess I should say. This,
right?
theoretically,
Right.
I'm the executor, and I think, my gosh, how do I access these benefits? Or I'm her
Well,
financial
that is
power of
one thing that
attorney.
we have to learn along the way as a financial advisor, is how to work with insurance companies when you're making a claim.
Mhm.
And it isn't easy. It's true. There are some things, documents and proof and conversations and navigation of letters and communication, that some people feel a little bit overwhelmed with. But that's what we are professionals for. That's why you rent our experience. So
I love that. I love your terms, rent our experience. Can you tell me, so this sort of feeds into the importance of having a financial power of attorney.
Mhm. Mhm.
And can you talk about the importance of that? Because I don't think people realize that either. If something happens and mom can't make her financial decisions and we have no access to her accounts, that can be challenging.
Very.
So tell me, from a financial planner's point of view, the importance of how does that affect us as we age if
Right.
we don't
Well,
have
you
a
and I have
power?
actually had conversations about this before, because there is a generation that is in their real older ages, in their late 80s and 90s, who really were taught that talking about money was not good, not allowed. It was poor form. And so letting their children know about their financial situation is not easy for them.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the older person, and you're right, it's usually the woman, because women do outlive men at a higher rate. So getting your mom to slowly but surely trust you, that you're not going to judge her, or you're not after the money or whatever. That's one thing that can be very helpful. And then the other thing is a financial power of attorney works this way. So it only works while the person is alive.
Yes.
Once a person passes, any kind of power of attorney no longer works, right? Then the will or the trust, the other estate planning documents come into play, and the court gets involved, probate, and that sort of thing. So, but a financial power of attorney says that I give this trusted person a certain kind of power. And you can actually say what those powers are.
Right.
So let's say, for instance, that Millie, who's 95, wants to give her daughter Emily access to her checking account. Just so in case something happens, she becomes disabled, then Emily can have access to her checking account. But that's all. She doesn't want her to have any other access. So it is something that you get to personally design yourself. And of course, you need an attorney to draw one up so that it is, effective and legal and so on.
Yes, and I think that a lot of people get stuck where their parent has never put anyone else on the checking account.
Right.
They can't access those funds, but mom's still alive and they need to keep her going, and you maybe pay the bill for her long-term care facility or her mortgage, things like that, any of her expenses, and they can't access her funds. And that really gets tricky. And some families don't have the funds themselves to support mom,
Sure.
and it becomes complicated. So I can't stress the importance enough of that financial document. And you brought up a good point that once someone dies, their financial power of attorney documents are over, and so are the healthcare power of attorney. No longer is responsible.
Right. Yeah. So a financial power of attorney is maybe a good alternative for the hesitant woman who really doesn't want to talk a lot about money. She can say, look, you can help me out with my checking account, or you can help me out with my financial advisor, but I don't have to put your name on the account so that you have access to it all the time. Now, that being said, I want to talk about a transfer on death, which can transition from a financial power of attorney into transitioning money to your children or family member or charity or whoever it is that you want to ultimately benefit from an asset or assets. So a transfer on death you could do at the bank. And that would mean that your individual account, and this doesn't apply to IRAs or retirement accounts. This applies to accounts that are not like that, right? We call them non-qualified or individual accounts. So you would just say, Millie Jones, TOD to Emily Jones. And so when she passes, Emily would be able to go into the bank and receive the money just by giving a death certificate. So she would not have to go through probate to get that money. So there's a lot of little things that can be very helpful.
That is hugely helpful because, I'll give the example of my uncle who thought he had taken care of everything. So that his wife had died a number of years before, and he had one surviving child, but he wanted to make sure everything was taken care of. And he was a detail guy. Well, there were things that slipped through the cracks with him, and it ended up that my cousin didn't have access to his accounts to do the things that really cost money at the end of life that he had not expected. So that transfer on death certificate, or transfer on death, is that what it's called? You said?
Yeah, transfer on death. It's an account registration.
Right. That would have been so helpful. What other things should people be thinking about when preparing their assets for death?
Yeah, the first thing we really need to, and I'm sure you've had attorneys on your program, but everybody deserves to have their will reviewed. If your will is 10 years old, there has been tax law changes, both at the state and federal level. There have been changes that could potentially shift the ultimate way that things get passed on and how your beneficiaries actually receive things. So wills that are 10 years old should be reviewed. And, here's the thing. Does this mean that you have to go pay an attorney a little bit of money to do that? Yes, but it is so worth the money and the peace of mind and the feeling of control that you're putting things together the way you want to put things together. So a will is how assets are passed through probate. Now, let's talk about retirement accounts, because retirement accounts are not passed through the will. And by the way, I'm not an attorney. I'm just talking about this generally.
I always say that too.
This is not advice. This is just, me giving you a little basic information just so that you can, here's the part about financial planning, Maureen. It's to help you make choices. Details of finances and strategies or action items and conversation. It's just to help you make your own choice. It's not a have to, it's a get to. And so back to the estate planning. Estate planning sounds so highfalutin, right? It sounds like you have to have a lot of money. But do you know how many people die without a will? And if you die without a will, then the state will apply all these laws and rules and decide who gets your money. And it can take a lot of time. So if you really, if you care about, how things go after you pass, then taking a little bit of time and spending a little bit of money to talk to a good attorney is really going to bear fruit for you. And then you can feel that peace of mind, and you can know that you took care of things and you took care of your family and friends.
I love that. I mean, I think we've seen that Prince did not have a will when he died. And I think it was finally settled, what, a decade later. And the only one that really benefited people that did are the attorneys, because it was so involved. Aretha Franklin. I mean, there's big names that died without wills, and it's been very hard. Besides the financial, it could be that you have that heirloom treasure that you wanted to pass on to, let's say, your granddaughter, but there was nothing written down, and it goes to some charity or some thrift store or something. You just never know. And that's what the power of having this work done. I'm so glad you brought up wills. And yes, they should be reviewed I think every 5 years on minimum, but at least every 10.
I said 10. Mostly the people that I refer to my estate planning attorney friends, they've got really old wills. So
right.
It's something that is, that I'm also really passionate about helping people, women, be motivated to take these steps, because there's a lot of things inside of us that can keep us from doing that. And one of the main things which you deal with all the time is relationships within the family. Relationships can be difficult, they can be problematic. Some families, especially now, can be, estranged from one another. But there are people like you and I who are trained to help families learn how to talk to one another so that everybody can get on the same page. And as best can be, as best as possible.
As best can be.
You cannot control people, for sure.
No. And we haven't even delved into blended families yet. And wow. I can't believe we're almost at the end of our time, because that's the importance when you have a blended family. When you have, there's even more importance to have those conversations. I just have loved this conversation, and there's so much more I want to talk to you about. But I think the big takeaways, what would you say from what we've talked about today that 3 things you really want to get across to people?
So 3 things would be: make a decision today that you're going to do some end of life planning. Also make a decision that if you don't have a good trusted advisor, that you're going to actually go seek one out, because there is one there for you. Yes. That you'll trust, you'll understand, they'll communicate the way you want to be communicated with. So get professional advice. And I guess the third one would be start to have more open, real conversations with the people you love, so that before you pass, that you can say how you feel, that you can provide the legacy you want to provide. Maybe it's not just money, maybe it's what you've learned in your life.
Right. Oh, that's so powerful. Tresa, thank you. So can you tell people how they can find you? Sure. If they want to seek out your advice?
Sure. So the best way to find me is just to put in your URL, Ameriprise Financial /Tresa Leftenant. And is my name?
I'll put the link. What's that? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put the link. We have a Facebook page, and we have just rebranded. We were Challenging Conversations. That's still the name of our Facebook page. And that is where I will put Tresa's information, so that you can, if you would like to explore things further with her, or if you're not in Washington State, maybe she could guide you to someone in another
state. With people, I just have to have a license in different states. The thing of it is that I'm Google. You can Google me. I'm findable on Google, but you have to spell my name Tresa, Tresa Leftenant.
Well, thanks so much. I just appreciate it. And thank you for joining us today. We can all be found on the Facebook, our Challenging Conversations page on Facebook. And Colleen and Kathleen and I, we are all part of the Gentle Passage Doula Collective, and it is our mission to get people having these conversations about end of life. Doulas, we bring you a little bit each week about different things that doulas do, and one of them is to help you look at everything as you're planning for end of life. So I'd like to leave you with all the information Tresa gave you. I talk about advanced care planning and advanced directives, but create a binder. This is what I tell my clients. Get a binder. Put your will, your advanced directives, your financial documents, your insurance documents. Have a section for your passwords. Get that in a binder where your family can easily access everything, and then review that annually. Make it your birthday present to yourself. Go through and make sure everything is in order. So thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to you joining us next week. Bye-bye.